and they get into all these creative endeavors now more than ever because they think they can avoid being a business person. I think they can avoid being sales-y. When reality is when you have to get up on stage, if you are a rapper or a singer or whoever, you're probably the most blatant salesperson on earth. Because you literally have to get up on stage alone and make people want that song using the various inflections in your God-given voice. 8 octaves to sell the song. I mean, some of these songs don't have lyrics. It's literally the octaves of this human's personality, emotionally connecting over what? I don't know. It's invisible. And people fall in love with that. It's an invisible attraction of music, the magic of music in that. But don't pretend you're not selling that. You're working your ass off. And then guess what? You got to do it again and again and again. And I tell some artists, you know, I've been on tour, so I say, I don't want to perform that song anymore. I hate my hit. Do you realize why you got into this to have one not things that you could go and do every night? But let's not pretend. I mean, is that crass? Let's not pretend you're not. You gotta sell. And we're back with the Certifiably Milkcrate show with a heavy-hitting, legendary lawyer, Vivek Jayaram. Did I nail that?
You got it, Aaron.
So we're here today, digging into the crates, the AI crates, talking about all things AI for young creatives, how you can utilize AI in your art, in your music, in your career, successfully, carefully, and actually make money with it. So the big question is here, the big point of this show, and I ask everyone of this, how do young artists make money in the music business today? Is there still music? Let's talk, you span music, fashion, and art. If you can quickly say is there still tons of money for young artists to, look forward to getting rich and successful in the arts? Because isn't that what all artists want ultimately?
Yeah. I mean, listen, the answer is yes and, right? I mean, of course there is, right? The creative business continues to evolve. Lots of the old ways of making money are gone. New ways of making money are here. Right? And if I could say one thing across all those areas, and you're right, we work with a lot of visual artists, I work with a lot of fashion brands, work with musicians, work with all kinds of creative and brand people making new creative, innovative things and put them out there in the world and hoping all of them to have a long, sustainable career, right? And, I'll say one thing, which, I'm a very proud Gen Xer, right? So what I'm about to say, right, is something that, in the 90s, in the 2000s, I mean, maybe even there are some lasting little bits of it still remaining, but I think it's fading away. But it was almost like, something you would never be caught dead saying back then, right? Which is like, if you want to make money and be successful as a creative person, you've got to kind of treat it like a business, right? And that's not selling out, right? And frankly, I think that that's as punk rock as anything, because if you're able to figure that out, right, you're able to figure out how to build a sustainable business with your art, with your creative sort of, skills, right? Well, guess what? Then you won't have to sort of wind down and find a day job and go away after a few years. You'll be able to create something sustainable, right? And if you're able to create decade after decade after decade, that's putting more and more and more art in the world, right? And that's, I think, net positive for everybody. And over the last 25 years, I've worked with, dozens, probably hundreds of super talented, super creative people who have broken through, and some of whom are like the household names that we all know, right? But I've worked with just as many, or at least a lot, of people who were just as talented from a creative standpoint, right? Who could never break through, right? And those are not household names, and you haven't heard of those people. And unfortunately, you probably never got to see their art, whatever it was, right? A painting, a piece of music, a piece of clothing, whatever it is, right? And I think the one thing that differentiates those two groups is exactly that. Learning either on your own or getting the support you need and gaining the knowledge you need to figure out how to run a, sustainable business. Because at the end of the day, that's what you have to do to turn your sort of that moment of creating something very special and unique into something that can help you make a living, for the rest of your life.
And as a proud Gen Xer myself, I found the only way for me to do it was DIY. which is, is punk rock.
Yeah.
It is Gen X.
Totally.
I mean, part of that was because the industries didn't really exist then.
Yeah.
When I talked to people about what I was doing at 10 years old, skateboarding, writing graffiti, making T-shirts, hats, mixtapes, DJing parties, like now that's big business.
Yeah.
It's crazy for me to look back and see, wow, like street culture still to this day when I see a 17-year-old kid wearing what I wore at 10.
Yeah.
And today, walking down the street in New York City, I mean, it's great because I love that template, but it goes to show you just the power of that look.
Yep.
It wasn't always here.
No.
But it's come back quite a while ago, and it's really
Yep.
the vintage look, the 90s. It's like, I don't know. We lived it. It wasn't that fun. I remember
I thought it was pretty
the
dope.
80s are pretty great. Late 80s was great. 90s was cool when you're looking back.
Yeah.
But the look was great. I mean, we had a lot of great stuff.
Yeah.
But for these kids, I'm like, guys, how are we going to evolve with the same look from 30 years ago? I mean, I love it.
Yep.
I live it. I'm still wearing it.
Yep. Yeah. Well, here's another reason why I think the 90s gets remixed in a really interesting way, right? It was really the last, I mean, if you think about, if you consider yourself Gen X also, right? Like, so if you think about what might be the defining characteristic of Gen X, it's that we meaningfully lived lives as children and as adults, right? Really what I'm talking about is as adults. We lived lives as adults pre-iPhone and really like the internet really taking off, right? And of course, as we are sitting here today in 2025, we're meaningfully living lives as adults in like the heart of it all, right? Of this sort of technological boom that we've had. And I think that perspective gives us, it's an interesting perspective to have. But I also think all of the culture that was generated in the 90s was the last time that we had culture developed in this sort of pre-super internet age, right? Now listen, I mean, I had a dial-up, connection like 93. I got to college in 96. I had got an email address. We were using the internet, sending emails, I guess, up until 2000.
.edu.
All the .edus. But like, I personally think, the internet definitely changed the world, but like, I really feel like the creative culture and like the entertainment business really got transformed in 2007 by the iPhone. Because it's now this ability to like, walk around with a computer in your pocket like at all times. And then with the advent of the App Store after that, allowing us to like add on all these, neat little software, pieces of software onto our phone and use them anywhere. And then, the access to high-speed internet everywhere and everything like that. I think that really, catapulted us forward. But if you think about what then probably happened in the 2000s and the 2010s, I mean, what was the look of the 2010s, if I ask you right now?
Good question.
What was the look of the 2000s? Get a little bit more.
Yeah.
A little bit more. And a lot of this has to do because we don't have as much hindsight and perspective. But I think the one reason that we really know with the 90s...
was still blingy, oversized hip-hop. I mean, I think in hip-hop terms, you had the oversized tall tee, very much the 50 Cent, the Lil Wayne, the Cash Money era of hip-hop, still very much oversized and
which was kind of a hangover from the 90s.
That was. But just not for the hood.
No.
It was more of a skate white boy thing.
Yep.
It was what a rave thing.
Yep. Yeah.
And now streetwear has gone urban, which is crazy. Which is twice that's happened.
Yeah.
So it gets a little. But speaking of Gen X and DIY, are you seeing these two groups you were talking to? Because I found that very interesting. Successful, both talented. Some broke through, some didn't. Was one had more of a team? Did one more try to do it more on their own? Is there any more? Because part of this conversation is always about who's on your team, right? And there's our artists, and it is trying to show young artists that so many think they can do it on their own. Right. Whether they can or they can't, with all of these tools and these apps and all of this kind of propaganda of the streaming culture. I want to be a streamer. I want to be the only one getting all the money in front of the camera by myself, by my rules. I don't know how many break through doing that, 0.1%, right? But that is a few, but the majority, it's like, well, who's going to help you? Who do you need? You need a lawyer. You need someone that's going to educate. Unless you have parents that understand IP, chances are you're going to fumble. You're going to fumble a lot until you realize. I mean, chances are they're going to be calling you saying, hey, someone took my thing.
Right.
Do I have any rights? And you're going to say what?
Right. Yeah, no, totally. I mean, I hate to say it, but like, you don't have to have a giant team, but I've seen very few, and I don't even know, as I'm sitting here talking to you, I don't know that I can think of any that maybe just broke through on their own like that, right? I think it takes a few things. The first thing is just the awareness that whether you're a singer-songwriter or like a hip-hop, guy, or you're, whether you're doing that or you're building a fashion brand, right, which probably just feels more commercial. Both those things are creative endeavors, but even like just that act of writing the song or writing those verses, like that also is a business, right? Because if you're an artist, like that is ultimately like how you're paying your bills and how you're sort of getting through life. And so you should think about setting it up, at least in some way, or treating it like a business because it is providing for your livelihood, right? And so I think the first step is just the awareness, right? It is a super creative endeavor that you're like going into, but the creative, if all you're trying to do is capture the creative moment, well, then there's no need to like commercialize anything. The minute you decide, well, I'm going to go commercialize this, I'm going to put my song up on Spotify, or I'm going to like try to, find a gallery to represent me, or whatever the case might be, right? That is, I think, an acknowledgement that you are trying to make this some type of a commercial endeavor, right? And so if you're going to take that small step or acknowledge that, I think it's important to be aware that in order for this to be sustainable, you need to be thinking long term. So what does that mean? Well, okay, figuring out like what is the strategy for your specific art, right? To generate whatever kind of income you feel like you may need or like whatever kind of lifestyle you want, right? And that's probably going to include, finding someone to help you market your thing, right, in the way that it should be marketed. That's, all about finding somebody to make sure that when everyone's doing deals. That's the only way, every artist is doing deals. If if you're an artist, you're doing a deal with a collector when you sell an artwork. If you're a musician, you're doing a deal, every night with the club when you're going in there and you're agreeing to play for a certain amount of time, they're giving you money, or, putting your songs up on Spotify. There's like a deal there, right? Like, okay, I'm putting it up here, and if I get this many streams, you're going to pay me this much money, right? So on and so forth. You get the idea, right? Well, you should have somebody in your corner who is familiar with these kinds of deals and is getting you the absolute best term on every deal. Because if you get shitty terms, right, well, it's going to take you 5 deals to get what you really should just be able to get in one, right? And so knowing someone, so having someone in your corner who knows how to sell your work, oftentimes that is the artist, but as you grow, you're going to need help with that, right? Because listen, and people don't want to hear this because I see a lot of, very funny memes on this stuff, but like, it's true, as an artist, you are not, you may not be trained or really even interested in like being some kind of content creator, right? Okay, that's fine. That's totally your prerogative. Well, then get someone to do it for you or help you with it, right? Because that is a very low cost way to get your art out to a very, very, very large group of people, like basically the entire world, right? So you got to find the person to help, manage your deals. And then, all the stuff you're talking about, find someone to help protect the things you've created, right? You need that. And so, you will eventually need to build some kind of team if you are going to like kind of push this whole thing forward.
Do you find that, I find this is going to be very crass, but it's a point I've been wanting to make for a long time.
Yeah, sure, tell me.
Because I grew up, once again, DIY. You had to learn the business if you wanted to get ahead. Hip hop is a little bit more, that's part of it, right?
Yeah.
Get money.
Yeah.
That's a big, but if you're not getting any money in hip hop and with your stuff, you're kind of like,
It's kind of whack. Yeah.
So other things is a little bit, I've been around a lot of different artists.
A
lot of different scenes.
A lot of artists. It's like
there's a lot of different. Go into the art world with that with
the get money mentality.
When we walk into a gallery, be like, yo, take my painting. Yo, it's gonna be the. It's happened. It happens all the time, and they're like, excuse the security, please get this person out of here. But could have been valuable. Just it's the approach. Mm-hmm. So how it's like once again it's like how does that guy ever get discovered? But that's another conversation. Yeah. But I don't think any artist realized. I knew it because I was just at the point of hunger, at maximum hunger. You go into a different mentality. It's how bad you want something, right? You will figure it out. Some don't maybe want it that much, but I don't think artists realize. Young artists, I think they get into art and they get into all these creative endeavors now more than ever. Because they think they can avoid being a business person. I think they can avoid being sales-y When reality is when you have to get up on stage, if you are a rapper or a singer or whoever, you're probably the most blatant salesperson on earth. Because you literally have to get up on stage alone and make people want that song using the various inflections in your God-given voice. 8 octaves to sell the song. I mean, some of these songs don't have lyrics. It's literally the octaves of this human's personality, emotionally connecting over what? I don't know. It's invisible. And people fall in love with that. It's an invisible attraction of music, the magic of music in that. But don't pretend you're not selling that. You're working your ass off. And then guess what? You got to do it again and again and again. And I tell some artists, you know, I've been on tour with someone, I don't want to perform that song anymore. I hate my hit. Do you realize why you got into this to have one of those things that you could go and do every night? But let's not pretend. I mean, is that crass? Let's not pretend you're not. You gotta sell. Because I've seen the other side, a million talented artists that refuse to sell. Oh, I don't want to perform tonight, or I'm not feeling it, or I'm not going to get up. Great artists, but won't do the interview, won't get on the plane, won't be friendly to the promoter, won't post the video, can't refuse to make content.
Maybe what it is, when you say you want to be an artist or you identify as an artist, it's not that you are refusing to do a business or refusing to sell. Maybe it's that all of us sell. It's just, as an artist, you're trying to make a decision as to what you are willing to sell and what you're not willing to sell. And maybe many artists come to the conclusion that the only thing they're willing to sell is really themselves, right? And not some product, not some service out there, go work for some big company. I really want to sell you my sort of point of view. And I want to sell you my perspective. And that's really my art. Right? And I think that might be the difference.
Okay.
But I agree, there's no selling.
There's no selling. I mean, but there's the perspective. I mean, I think it's a pretty common perspective of artists believing that they don't have to sell by doing art. Or also it goes hand in hand. We don't have to do business. I don't have to learn business. I'm an artist. Someone's going to take care of all that stuff for me. And I mean, some other conversations I had were similar to yours when in some rooms with some major, label owners, and you get to say, hey, tell me about this guy, tell me about that guy. And are they great business people? And they, oftentimes I've been told again and again and again, the greatest artists are also the greatest business people.
That I would have a hard time arguing against that, to be honest with you. I mean, the 2-3 artists that just kind of come to mind that I've had the pleasure of working with a lot. I mean, they're exceptional at business. I mean, a lot of it is because they know their craft really well. So if you know the assets that you have to sell really well, you're probably going to be a good salesperson, right? But yeah, there's a part of it that's just like, I would not doubt that the really good artists could also just be really great entrepreneurs.
Yeah, I mean, it's a rare combo, I think. Because
they've got a very clear vision, very good work ethic, and they stay focused on something for a very long period of time.
Yeah, one of my first jobs was an agent. So, and you discover artists that believe they could book their own shows. It's a very early realization, and you saw how far they got. And you saw the guys who, and I used to say, guys, Jay-Z doesn't do that to young artists. You know what I mean? You don't get to him. That's the reason his value keeps going up, because when promoters and people can get access to you too easily, they can very easily devalue you. The part of this stuff is to maintain your value. But oftentimes they want to make that it's arguments. 10% for booking a show is crazy. You're like, okay. We'll do the travel.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people say you get rich by saying no, not by saying yes.
Yeah, that's a good point. So, we're talking about the human evolution side of this, of arts and creativity and content. I mean, you may know more than me. Every A&R I see, they're chasing TikTok views, and I think they're also labels are kind of still dependent on this kid to be able to market himself, right? Isn't that a big part of what we're buying here? We're not signing your music necessarily because we can't market you. We will tell you that up front. We need you to get yourself to this point, and then we're going to take you to the next level, whatever that means. But I mean, that sounds like a good old selling a dream if I've ever heard one. But I mean, I don't know. You're saying that get a content creator. In my experiences, you can't get a content creator to make very much of anything because most of the young kids want to do their own thing. They don't want to support another person's thing.
Right.
They have their own.
Right.
It's my personal. I mean, a lot of social content is like, this is my personal identity. How
Right.
I can't make a thing for you. I mean, then there's older generations that do that. But do you feel that like A&Rs are looking for a self-contained, basically ready to go package of a content machine with music? I'd say a content machine first and foremost, silly, whatever, personable, being able to every day consistently not get burnt out and make more and more videos and then throw the songs in here and there.
Yep.
Or just a great musician. I don't know if great kid musicians who'd have following,
but
views.
But I don't know if that's different from what we've seen in the past, right? Like if you were really good looking and very personable, like the pop world has always been open, been looking for that, right? If you're just a really great guitarist or you're a really great MC or something, like there's plenty of clubs you can find work at. I think in a place like New York or LA or Chicago or something like that, right? But I think that if we're talking about like the A&R, major labels, right? I mean, major labels are private companies, right? Or private companies looking to maximize the value of the shares that their shareholders are holding. And so if it's going to be faster and cheaper and bigger to like find a star who already has a giant TikTok following or something. I mean, Addison Rae is a very interesting case study, right? I would never have thought that someone like that would have gone from TikTok star to Pitchfork darling in like less than 2 years, but it happened, right? And I'll be honest with you, I think some of her songs are actually way better than I thought they would be, right? But like, that might be a very interesting case study 5-10 years from now because there's somebody who was doing TikTok dances to generate a giant audience and then turned it into like being a real touring pop musician selling out pretty large arenas like all over the world, right?
What's funny about that? I'm very friendly with the top guys at Zoomies.
Okay.
And we talk about, they do a lot of in-house private label licensing deals. They're always experimenting. And they'll sign the number one gazillion view of whatever, TikTok, and try to roll out a merch
Product
collection.
or something,
And sometimes it's just zilch. Like there's like, Aaron, this guy has, 10 million whatevers, and we sold one t-shirt.
Yeah. This is like the big thing. So right now, there's a lot of this happening in Hollywood, in LA, Hollywood, also New York, everywhere, is this idea of like the celebrity-led brand, right? And, it can be done really well and be really lucrative. One example is, what's the world's most eaten chocolate bar right now? It's the Beast Bar. I think it's
right,
called
wow.
Mr. Beast.
Yeah, food
right?
seems to be an easier sell than,
so he did that.
Clothes.
But, right, and then you got Hailey Bieber's Road, had a nice exit, big sale, pretty quickly scaled. You've got, Kim Kardashian with Skims.
Skims, yep.
That's growing,
It seems like the traditional hat t-shirt thing has just been, just ran its course.
But this idea of founders or idea of creators, influencers, building a big following and then trying to drop some
product into
name, like just kind of like soulless product, I think we've figured out that doesn't work, no matter who you are, right? Because here's the thing. You may be able to sell your first product to your 1 million followers just because whatever, but like doesn't make a business, not going to get repeat people unless the product itself is really good.
I mean, it's a very interesting conversation there as influencer versus brand. Our influencers actually transition to brands easily. It doesn't seem so. I mean, unless you're top, marquee, you're talking Hailey Bieber, they can kind of do whatever.
Yep.
They're in an elite air. I feel like they got it figured out. But when you got the next tier down, big, like we're already getting that from these guys. I mean, I think that's a lot of the world today. We're already getting that. We don't need that multi-tiered levels of this. Like back in my day, you had Fat Farm, Mecca, Iniche, all these hip hop brands, and that was a previous, rapper. I mean, I don't know. I'm sure there was some other stuff around them of my generation of
Yeah.
the 2000s.
Yeah.
Those were the deals.
Yeah.
Those were the big money licensing play you do to get other maybe a liquor, right? Or
Right.
clothing or liquor. You had tour money, clothing, liquor, maybe record sale money. But the clothing was the big thing. You'd go to Magic and there'd be these massive booths. I don't know if you ever experienced that.
No, I didn't.
It would be the Fat Farm booth would be as big as your office, but double decker. And every hip hop brand was a licensee of some whoever.
It's got to be a good product.
Yeah, and
right.
the clothes was not a good product.
Right.
It was all the same oversized jean outfit, double XL, cheap fabric.
Yeah.
With this one was Fat Farm, this one was. I'm not going to say Sean John. We'll cut that out. This one was whoever. Every rapper had his thing. Rockaware.
Yeah.
I mean, they turned into 33. And here's a good.
Rockaware was actually pretty successful.
Yep. They all were pretty.
But Jay is
they were all successful.
Jay is a really smart
I
entrepreneur.
don't think you could find. I mean, I think I will give Damon. I know Dame, hard times, Dame, but I'll give Damon his props from Rockaware, but just give him some love. But I think that they all made a lot. I mean, the license, the average brand of that was a $100 million brand. 150 million gross sales. But you might be able to break this down. The artist is getting what out of that?
Oh gosh. So if artists are watching this and you get asked to do a brand deal where you're making something and you're getting like a royalty, few things on this. Always make sure at an absolute bare minimum, all your costs are not only covered, but advanced and paid up front. Okay? Number one. Number two, you got to get some kind of fee. Some kind of fee. Even if you're going to get to the royalty, which I'm going to talk about in a second.
We're talking about a guarantee?
Guaranteed fee. There should be something, right? Even if it's $5,000, something, right? It sends a message. It at least guarantees you're getting paid something for this work you're doing, right? And you got to get the cost advance because why on earth would you be investing your own money in getting products made for somebody else, right? Basically, right? Third comes a royalty. So on the royalty, the standard range for most of this kind of stuff, like saying like an apparel deal or something like that, usually like a 10 to 20% royalty, right? I mean,
isn't it like Disney?
What do you mean?
Is that like the Disney license?
I mean, it all depends. I'm talking about
20 is pretty damn good. Oh, now we
20 is
talking. Here's another confusing.
Net profit.
This is a confusing
always
one.
Net profits.
Always
guys.
net.
It's always net profits, and this is where people really get tripped up. And this is where people they don't really lose money but what they do is they enter into a deal with not understanding what the deal is, right? So when you get a 15% like merch is a good thing, hoodies, tees, hats, whatever.
Let's do $1 million in sales first year.
Right. So $1 million in sales, you have a 15% royalty. You're not getting $150,000. Okay. The way it works is, and all this is should be defined in your contract, right? Which is first the cost of making those $1 million is just out the door. That gets taken out first. So now you're down to $600,000, say, right, or whatever. Then you gotta. There might be taxes, there may be insurance, there may be shipping, there may be, whatever. You got to read your contract carefully. Sometimes they deduct labor and design costs and like all this kind of stuff, right? Which is fine. I mean, that might be subsumed just by the cost of making the goods. But at the end of the day, what you get is 15% of the net profit. So the after all of the costs are.
Is that what's left in the net?
Yeah. That's what's left in the net. That's what's left in the net, right? And so you get a percentage of that. So I mean, and so no one's trying to trick you. It's just a lot of times artists don't understand,
But wouldn't gross be better technically?
Yeah.
But it's going to be a
depends who you
smaller.
are.
It's going to be a smaller.
Well, gross is better if you're the licensee, if you're the licensor.
Yeah, typically we're
right?
talking about the artist is going to be the
Yeah.
guy saying, "Here's my designs, you do the rest."
Yeah. So when I say here's my designs, do the rest.
You would want. You would think you would want.
want gross.
I still never. It's always a back and forth.
But listen. Here's why gross. So I also work with a lot of brands who've become very big companies and stuff like that. I mean, on the company side, you're thinking to yourself, well, hold on. I mean, if I give this person 20% of sales, then I am risking really taking a bath if I'm over budget, right? So if I got the $1 million in sales, but God damn it cost me,
and I got to pay this guy right off the top.
$950 to get there, right? If it costs you $950 to get there, at least you could go to your C-suite and say, we basically broke even. Not if you're gave this guy, the artist, gross sales. Now you got to go pay the artist $200,000, right? 150, which is going to come out of pocket, right? So that's generally how that works.
It gets tricky.
It gets tricky. Yeah.
I still haven't, figured out the best way, because, if you do gross, they're going to give you 5% in gross.
Yep.
And then it's also the third option is kind of like, oh, well, do you partner in an incorporation? I find you never want to be partnered, do you?
Well, a lot of times, we had something.
Now you got liability.
Yeah, well, we had something last year where two people literally just did a little capsule drop, and it did very well. And so immediately they formed a company. They each became shareholders in that company, and they went and did more drops, and now they're growing, and they're real brand, right? So you may want to. I mean, if it's for a one-off drop.
Was that kind of a manufacturer-artist relationship?
That was, that was like two creatives.
Two creatives,
yeah. Basically an idea for a thing, and the hats just went crazy, and they're still going crazy.
Good.
And, yeah.
So all of that aside, AI.
Uh-oh.
Let's jam into AI.
Here we go.
AI. How can you make money with AI? The simplest formula.
Well, the first thing that your audience should know, and I know you know this, we were talking about this earlier, Aaron, is that works created using generative AI tools, right? ChatGPT, Cloud, Gemini, Grok, Suno, Udio if you're playing around with music, Midjourney, DALL-E 2 if you're a video person, image person, right? If you're using those tools, you do not get copyright protection, okay? And here's why. Our copyright laws come from the 1976 Copyright Act, which was passed by Congress. And when Congress passed this law, they said, we will give copyright protection to anybody who creates anything that satisfies three requirements, right? The thing has to be original, right? We're not going to give you copyright if you're copying somebody. It's got to be fixed to a tangible medium, right? Which is like a sort of very jargony way of just saying it can't be just an idea. It's the expression of the idea, right? And we dealt with this very briefly 25 years ago, right, with Napster and everything, where people were like, oh, well, are these digital songs? Are these like fixed to any tangible medium? And at the end of the day, the court's like, yeah, it's an MP3 file. That's fixed, right? That's like a thing you put on a thumb drive, hard drive. It's there, right? It's fixed, not just an idea. It's fixed there, right? The third is human authorship. So back in 1976, right, Congress was thinking about this. And they said, we're going to give copyright if it's original, okay. If it's fixed to a tangible medium, okay. And if it's authored by a human. And in the 49 years since that act was passed, I've been practicing about half that time, right? This idea of human authorship, that's an issue that I personally have never actually litigated. That until recently. That is an issue that in the legal circles and even in the public is really only sort of been in the mainstream or even been in the news like one time. 2012, there's a National Geographic photographer named David Slater who takes his camera out into a forest in Indonesia, sets up his camera, walks around, he's hiding behind a tree, seeing, and a bunch of monkeys come and they start playing around with the camera. And one of these monkeys named Naruto takes the perfect monkey selfie. Slater's thrilled, takes his equipment, comes back to the States. I think that photo was on the cover of National Geographic and some other publications as well. And lo and behold, PETA, right, the organization, files a lawsuit in federal court asking the judge to make a declaration that it's Naruto and not Slater who owns the IP in this work. And more specifically, what they were saying is Slater doesn't own the copyright because Slater may be a human being, but Naruto took the photo, and Naruto's not a human being. Court agreed with PETA. But outside of that little blip, which ended up on like every page 6, like in the world, right? Outside of that, we don't really deal with human authorship. Well, fast forward now to about 2.5 years ago, an artist, scientist, person I know, Chris Castanova, she was messing around, created a graphic novel named Zari of the Dawn. And she submitted it to the U.S. Copyright Office towards the end of 2022. And like dozens, hundreds, thousands of other comic book authors, she just thought, I'm going to get my copyright registration and move on. And she did initially. Got a copyright registration. Well, a couple months later, ChatGPT commercial version is released. If you guys remember that in the holiday season. And in that January, all that the U.S. and the world was talking about was artificial intelligence, machine learning. And the U.S. Copyright Office catches wind that Zari of the Dawn was actually created using a software called Midjourney. And it was on the copyright application, but they didn't kind of put two and two together. And they never do this, Aaron, right? Never do this. They sua sponte, which is a Latin term, like on their own, right? They rescinded or they narrowed her copyright registration. And they said, listen, Chris, you wrote the story. You literally wrote the story. So we're going to give you protection for that. And you arranged these images that are in your comic book. So we'll give you protection around the arrangement of the images, but those characters you created, like, you don't own those because those were created by Midjourney, not by you. And so no copyright protection because work created by Midjourney lacks human authorship. Okay, that was in 2023. Soon after that, Stephen Thaler, Jason Allen, several others, other artists encountered the same obstacle at the U.S. Copyright Office. Stephen Thaler, a little more well-resourced, appealed this to a federal court. They agreed with the Copyright Office. So right now, there's a lot of noise out there. You guys are reading things every day, Anthropic, OpenAI, New York Times, Sarah Silverman, what the hell's going on, right? The bottom line right now is this. We've had one federal decision, but that decision is consistent with a whole bunch of copyright decisions, which basically says if you're using these tools, you will not get copyright protection for these things. A lot of you watching this may say, who gives a fuck, right? Well, let's talk about why you should, right, care about this. If you're an artist and you want to license your work to LVMH to put, your image on clothing or something like that, well, they're not going to do it. Why? Well, because they can't prevent anyone else from creating the exact same thing because nobody owns the IP in it, right? There's no value in it, right? As a copyright owner, right? This also comes from the same copyright law. As a copyright owner, you and only you get to make copies of the work, distribute the work, license the work, make derivative works of the work. If you don't have any of that, and all of a sudden LVMH has a license to this artwork, well, what is stopping, Perry Ellis or Tommy Hilfiger or anybody else from literally making the same exact
Well, they could just take it, right?
They could just take it.
You can't stop them.
You can't stop them. The you can't stop them is another great one, right? Why can't you stop them? Well, at least until 2019, which is really the majority of my career. You know how we'd file copyright complaints if somebody was infringing on a client? We literally go to the copyright.gov in the morning, hit send on an application for a copyright registration. An application, not the you just submit your application. 2 seconds later, hit send on your lawsuit.
Wow.
That's all you needed to do. 2019, there's a Supreme Court case that comes out, or Fourth Circuit case that comes out, that basically says, I think it was a Supreme Court case actually, that called the Fourth Estate, that came out that basically said, you now need a copyright registration in order to have the keys to federal court.
What year was that?
2019.
Oh, geez, I always thought that was the way.
So now you can't even have access to the courts to stop someone from copying your work unless you have a registration. Well, guess what? You can't get a registration if you're using ChatGPT to write your book or if you're using Midjourney to create your photo collage.
Now, Kevin and I were talking this on the way down. It's like, okay, so there's got to be an AI detector within copyright.gov. I would think, is there, let's say, here's my story, here's my great, the story of whatever. Hey, here it is, Copyright Office. I made it. Because millions of people will lie. I made it. Is there a code within the file, within Suno, within Midjourney, in the coding of the thing that somehow is detectable that this was made through that thing?
So I have one non-answer and then an answer. I honestly don't know. I would not be surprised if the Copyright Office uses certain detection tools, but I know for a fact that you can both slide by those detection tools with other tools, and I also know that sometimes things get flagged as AI and they're not AI, right? But here's the thing. If you are using an attorney, right, and the attorney is lying, right, we could get disbarred, all that stuff, right? Here's the other thing though, and people really should know this. If you're somebody like yourself, right, just a creative person who's doing a lot of creative things, right, or if you're an artist building a career around it, fashion brand, anybody, if you are knowingly submitting false stuff to the Copyright Office and they find out, and believe me, they have found out before, they have ways of finding out, right, that's a federal crime, potentially. And in addition to potentially being barred from ever being able to file another copyright registration, which is a potential sanction or remedy, right? I mean, you could get indicted. Are you going to get indicted for one?
Do you know any cases of that? Anyone?
Oh, there are cases of people doing like mass fraudulent copyright registrations. There was
any jail time?
Yeah, there's a criminal aspect to the Copyright Act.
Yeah.
Yeah. So most of the jail time you find in like big counterfeit operations. So selling 5 LV bags down on Canal Street, not going to get you in jail. Owning a factory that's pumping out 100,000 of these a year and putting those out in the market, that might be a criminal copyright infringement. I had a case about 15 years ago, actually, with a streetwear brand in LA, where we had unbelievable amounts of infringement. We sued about 50 different defendants, found its way all the way up to a chain of people who were renting these big warehouses to make the stuff. They were making counterfeit molds of the t-shirt designs and stuff like that. We went in with the U.S. Marshals and seized all that stuff. I'm a civil guy, so my cases were all civil copyright infringement. But at the time that we were prosecuting the case, going to court hearings, doing discovery, we were liaising with the U.S. Attorney's Office, who was asking us to provide them with whatever information we were finding so that they could go and investigate, ultimately prosecute folks on a criminal.
How did that get on their radar? Because that's got to be they don't typically.
I can't tell you how they knew in that case.
Yeah.
Okay, I can't tell you what they knew in that case. But generally speaking, oftentimes if you're handling, copyright and trademark are rare that we find ourselves dealing with a criminal context. Trade secrets, though, which we do also handle, and we handle quite a bit, it's sort of becoming part of IP, right? Trade secrets oftentimes do have a criminal component. And what happens, fortunately, unfortunately, if you're a plaintiff's lawyer, you may file your civil case, and then you may just call up the U.S. Attorney's Office and say, hey, I found an interesting case today, civil case. I want to have a look at it. There's nothing illegal with doing that.
Yeah. I guess if you know people, you can get someone's attention.
Well, maybe not, right? But that's how the prosecutors work. They work on tips,
right?
And that's a tip,
yeah.
Right. Hey, this has been filed publicly. Nothing confidential about it. Go read it. If they see it, they're like, oh, interesting. So you're saying this guy stole all of this company's trade secrets and it's worth $1 billion? Like, wow, that's kind of great. He did it by these very nefarious means. Like, okay, well maybe that's wire fraud. Maybe that's
RICO.
Yeah.
My cousin Rico. So we're going to wrap it up quickly. But what is your 5-year view of AI? Are we going to be dancing to Optimus Tesla robots performing on stage? Are we going to be? What can we give us a prediction that we can look back on and say he was right?
Yeah. All right. Well, AI is here. It's not going anywhere, right? It's a very powerful technology. It's probably taken 50, 60 years to get to this point, but we're here. I think that...
Quick question. Do you see consumers who are not creatives all of a sudden making all these songs? Do you see consumers who are not creatives all of a sudden wanting to make their own movie? They never created anything in their life. Now all of a sudden, I don't know if people like that have a built-up desire.
They might
to
as a
create.
hobby. They might as a hobby.
It might be a random.
Maybe as a hobby, something like
old
that.
granny writes a love novel.
Maybe. But I do think that generally speaking, I think the courts at the end of the day are going to say that this training data is okay, as long as you're not training on stuff you got from shadow libraries and random BitTorrents and the dark web and all these places that are illegal anyway, right? And so I think at the end of the day, the training might be okay, and so the focus is going to remain on all these outputs. Are the outputs infringing? Right, same as today. I think that whether it's movies or music or fashion or whatever, people are going to be creating using AI, and I think if it's good and the market likes it, it'll do well. Right? There's going to be a small subset of people who will say, I will never listen to AI-generated music. But by and large, the consuming public, which is billions of people, right? If they hear something they like, they're not, when you go to a movie and you see a really great scene, you're like, I like that scene, but was there CGI in that scene?
For sure.
You're like, no, that was a dope scene, right? Like you enjoyed it, connected with you in some way. Now there might be an argument that it's harder to connect with humans, when a human really hasn't had much input in the creation of the thing, right? But I think by and large, it's going to be here. I think that for copyright, I do think that either the courts, maybe the Supreme Court, or Congress will have to figure out a way to redefine or expand the current definition of human authorship to include people who are just exerting a pretty high degree of creativity in prompting, right? I know there's a whole bunch of problems with giving copyright protection to prompting, so I don't, that's maybe for a different episode.
Rick Rubin's a fan of AI music.
Yeah.
Vibe coding, he calls it.
Vibe coding. Yeah, he's also, I saw this morning, he's also critical, saying, well, AI doesn't have a perspective. It doesn't
that's true.
Doesn't have a point of view. So he's also wrestling with it. I think we're all wrestling with it. Listen, I don't know anybody that's out there saying, oh, I just love AI music. Yeah. I wish there was an AI music festival. I haven't heard anybody say that, right?
Firefest.
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly what it would be. You hit it on the nose. But I think that, you got Timbaland, who's super respected,
will.i.am is all about it, been about it forever.
There are going to be people who use it in very interesting ways. And it won't be a surprise that those are also probably...
I think Kanye's been using it, right? He said he's used it in the last few projects.
Yeah.
So.
And listen, if there's a part of this, you asked me if Granny's going to be making music. I think if you're not inclined to be a creative person, I don't know that the tool of AI is going to make you...
Seniors. I heard it's going to be huge with seniors.
Possibly,
but they missed the boat.
Maybe. But I'll tell you this. This is where I think it's going to be interesting for artists. Listen, I mean, it really... has the capacity, I don't know if it's going to do it, but I think it's got the capacity to really democratize the making of art. So if you want to make a film, and you really want to make a film, you just never could raise the goddamn $5 million, right? Maybe you can make a film.
I mean, it's tough because so much of the value of the creation was through the access point. Like when you had turntables, you were a DJ. Not anyone could get turntables. Yeah. They were expensive. You had to buy records. You had to commit. Other kids were like, not committing. So you got to be the DJ.
True.
Just like you're saying.
So it is gating.
It's tough that. Yeah. I mean, where's the value when we can all do it? Is what I'm saying.
But can we all do it?
We could all make a crappy movie if we want. It may not be good, may not be bad, but it's some of the value of it came from the industry rollout. It came from the Miramax film, or we were going to put our brand name on this, the Disney name, this name, the whatever name on it, right? That's what made us pay attention to. Oh, this is from the makers of Shrek, from the makers of the Minions. Oh, what's their new one? Right. When you don't have all of that, when it's just me. The makers of what? Who cares, Aaron? Right. You never made a thing before. Right. But no, it's good. It's good. It's as good as that. It looks just like that. It sounds like that. It's just as good as quality. It's a more interesting story. Why don't you like mine? Oh, because I don't know. Yeah. That's going to once again always be the marketer. It's like our last line of humanity is marketing.
Selling.
It's selling. Which America was founded on: salesmanship. Woolworth, P.T. Barnum, whoever else, any presidential candidate that ever got elected.
I mean, Alexander Hamilton's selling to Jefferson or whoever.
Everyone's selling, but so I mean, I guess I've always said it's United Sales of America. Like you better be selling something, and AI is going to allow a lot of people to do it. But once again, how do you market it? But one last question for you. So you do one of these AI songs, and the voice comes out. It's not one of these ones where you're jacking a voice. Okay. It comes out sounding kind of like somebody. Obviously, it's not. You didn't prompt. You can't prompt. They won't let you. Right. You're not. They won't. You
but
put
it sounds like
it might reminisce
like Drake or The Weeknd or whoever.
Maybe not. Someone not blatant, but it has a faint thing of like, gee, that kind of sounds like that. That could be a lawsuit, right? You could get sued.
So we've already had this case. So if you look at the Rick Astley versus Young Gravy case, this is where Young Gravy actually licensed the interpolation for the big Rick Astley hit. But when the song came out, there's a part in the chorus where Young Gravy has like one of his buddies come in and say like, "Must be the money," in this Rick Astley-ish voice, and he got sued for it, even with the license for the music, right? And as a small aside, the producer Ghostwriter. So Ghostwriter released a song called "Heart on My Sleeve," which is basically Drake and The Weeknd's voice over a song that he wrote. So that implicates the publicity rights of Drake and The Weeknd. Why? All of this goes back to the mid-'80s and Bette Midler. Okay, last story of the day. Ford was getting ready to release its Mercury Sable. Okay, the first time it's ever come out. They wanted to get a big pop star to do a big hit, right? You may not believe it today, 40-some years later, but that was Bette Midler.
I bet,
right?
yeah.
And they wanted to use the song "Do You Want to Dance," which was a hit from 1978. I think it was maybe a #1 hit or top 5 hit, as a soundtrack for the commercial. But they asked Bette, she says no. So, it's much easier to license a cover song. That's why if you're watching TV and you're like, why am I hearing this like Green Day song played by like some high school band? Well, that's why. Because it's like a cover where they couldn't get the license. Easy to get license for a cover song.
Still have to pay a bunch of money,
Still have to pay mechanical and all.
Yeah.
I won't get into the
Yeah,
details
yeah,
of it, but you can get it. So they did. They got the covers. They got the license to do a cover song. Commercial comes out. Bette is at a friend's house on New Year's Eve. 2 or 3 people come to her and say, hey, congratulations, I heard you on the Mercury Sable commercial. That's cool, a car commercial. She goes, no, I told those guys no. Like, what? What are you talking about? She watches the commercial. Well, Ford, very smartly, gets the license to do the cover song. And who do they get to sing the Bette Midler voice? They get Uta, I'm forgetting her last name, Eula Hedwig maybe is her name. I'm probably butchering that. But she was Bette's 10-year-long, several tour-long backup singer.
Smart.
Who did a dead-on, imitation.
Her stunt double.
Of Bette Midler. And the court in that case, she lost in the trial court, won on appeal. And what the appellate court in California ultimately said was, you cannot pirate someone's identity through voice. And that case, which has been long forgotten, is finding its way back into the conversation these last 5 years. The Young Gravy judge mentioned it. There's been a few cases.
Who lost? Bette Midler lost?
She lost initially, then she ended up winning.
Wow.
She won $450,000.
Wow.
For basically, Ford had to pay her what
Is it
she would have charged for the license.
Is it because, by using her backup singer, it was almost bad faith? Like
what it is,
malicious
I'm sorry,
intent?
so it was the publicity rights.
Okay.
So what it was is that publicity rights protects the use of anyone, and no one else can use your name, your image, and your likeness. Name and image, pretty simple. You know what that means. Likeness is a little loosey-goosey. Before that Bette Midler case, likeness did not include voice. So that now, voice is included in that. So if you do AI Michael Jackson singing your song, you'll get sued by the estate.
But it wasn't Bette Midler's voice.
But it sounded literally just like her. If you go to YouTube and watch and you put it up next to her song.
Wow.
And that's it. You have to have a recognizable voice, and it has to be somebody really trying to, and they were trying to steal her identity.
They tried to backdoor, yeah. I could get that, but if it was, like, let's just say they had a random chick that didn't know Bette Midler, I wonder if it would have played out differently because there was no direct association to actually Bette Midler's
Maybe not.
similarity.
Maybe not, but that case is important because it's going to prevent people from being able to use AI. Yeah. Like, if I just want Frank Ocean to sing my songs because he's got a great voice, I get
a lot of the ones don't allow you. I'm sure there's ones that do, but they're also like when you use like a Suno, it will just churn out a voice that sometimes you're like, that kind of sounds like somebody.
Of course, because it's trained on all the famous voices.
Yeah, you're like that. Yeah. But this has been incredible. Wow. Awesome. Amazing. Yo, thank you so much.
I'm Vivek Jayaram. Loved being on the Certified Milkcrate show with my boy Aaron.
Great pleasure. Thank you so much. You're the man.
Right,
thank you. I owe you one.
No problem, man. Of course.